Welcome to this session titled Power BI Licensing Made Simple. Hopefully when you received a toy as a child, your imagination was inspired with all the things you could possibly do with it. For me, I remember that Scalextric was a thing that I really loved playing with. It fired my imagination in so many ways. I would still love to have one as an adult, I have to say. Evel Knievel Stunt Bike, on the other hand, unfortunately was a bit of a disappointment. The television adverts made it sound so fantastically wonderful, but unfortunately when you got it home it didn't do quite exactly what it advertised in the television. And that's how I felt a bit like with SQL Server reporting service about 10 or 15 years ago. There were so many other amazing reporting products on the market. They were, quite frankly, just so much better than SQL Server reporting services. It was an awesome tool, but it just couldn't compete with the other tools that were out there. And when I was at a conference called SQL Bits in London, I approached one of the representatives from Microsoft and I said, "What's going on? Product X is just so amazing. Product W is just even more fantastic. What's happening? Why are Microsoft not doing anything?" The response was concise, short and to the point. They said, "Just wait." I was deeply frustrated, I have to say, but they were right because not long afterwards, Project Crescent was released. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, it was love at first sight. This product I could see so much potential with, and I've watched this product grow in and develop into what we have now is Power BI. Power BI Desktop, Power BI Service. And I still drag my colleagues over to my desk and say, "Look what Power BI can do." I was doing that today just before this recording. And one of the things I realized that when I work with Power BI, I would need to look much closer at the licensing. How do you share reports with other people? How can people access the reports that I've produced? So I realized that I would have to do a bit of exploring, a bit of a deep dive. So I started reading blog posts and I started reading white papers from Microsoft. And I reread blog posts and I did some more research and reread other white papers. And I'll be honest with you, I think I have to say I tore my hair out at several points because there was no single source of information. There was no clear, consistent guidance. And after many years of research and patience and reading, I think I've come to the conclusion where I can possibly say I now understand Power BI licensing, that I may be able to explain it to other people. However, one of the things I did notice that really disappointed me about Power BI licensing is I believe it does not address the elephant in the room, particularly with small to medium enterprises, SMEs. So, what's an SME? Well, let me define it first for you. Now, there was a survey done in the UK in 2014 of private sector businesses, and it found that 99.3% of businesses were SMEs. That made me really disappointed because Microsoft were not addressing this market. And it made me really grumpy. And as that made me really grumpy, I started looking around for different alternatives. And I fell across one or two. And I have to say, the alternatives really surprised me. And I want to talk about them today because, unfortunately, in order to understand them, you have to think outside the box. So who's this person that's been yapping away for the last 4 minutes? Well, my name's Robert French. I work as a data engineer for a company called Quorum in in Edinburgh. These are my contact details. Please feel free to get in touch with me. In Quorum, as you can see, we are just a fantastic company. I have to say that, although I do believe it, even though I work for them. These are some of the things that we happen to do: modern workplace, cloud platform, data and AI is where I work, in cloud development. These are some of the services we offer in the data and AI team, and these are some of the technologies. So what's the goal of this presentation today? Well, I want to give you an overview of all the Power BI licensing offered by both Microsoft and third-party options as well. It's going to be a very high-level overview. We're maybe going to point out some of the things that are not obvious from this level, And I make no apology that some of the technical detail is going to be very shallow today. I just don't have time to go into the technical details, I'm sorry, but I would love to chat to you about it if you want to contact me. I don't work for Microsoft, and so I'm going to point out what I see as both the good and bad aspects of Power BI, particularly licensing, because there are just some amazing things about Power BI licensing. On the other hand, there's things that just make me think, oh my God, please no. I do love questions. And I will put my contact details up again at the end, or you can possibly ask in the comments section against this video. Now, everybody loves presents. Everyone loves to get something for free, and believe it or not, Microsoft give things away for free. No, I didn't believe it either, but it's true. And we will talk about that free offering in this session here. And then we'll move on to talk about the Power BI Pro license and what that means and what that's all about. And we'll talk about Power BI Premium per user license. And then we'll move on to talk about Power BI Embedded. Some people talk about embedded or embedding, and we'll talk about what that is. If you've never heard of it, well, you're in for a treat. Then we'll talk about Power BI Premium just briefly, a couple of things about that. And then we'll think about some third-party options, things that maybe you never thought about before, combining with some other things and producing some interesting things. So in the inimitable words of Pink, let's get this party started. So, free. Yes, Microsoft actually give away something for free. And what's so awesome about that? Well, the thing I'm actually talking about is Power BI Desktop. Yeah, Power BI Desktop you can download either from the Power BI service at apppowerbi.com or from the Windows Store. It costs £0 and 0 pence. I'm sure as many managers will like that particular cost. One of the great things is it allows you to explore a huge number of data sources. Over 100 different data sources, data connectors included within Power BI Desktop for free. And when I think about that, I think it's like almost like a data warehouse. You can pull in data from all sorts of different locations and pull it together into one place. It's like a mini data warehouse. It also has ETL capabilities built into it. ETL means extract, transform, and load. You may have heard some ETL tools like Informatica, Alteryx, Talon, ClickView Expressor, Tableau Data Prep, or SQL Server Integration Services. You have these sorts of tools built into Power BI Desktop for free. The same data warehousing engine that's built into Power BI Desktop is the same that large enterprises buy. Obviously, it's scaled down, but the engine underneath is the same engine, the same data warehousing engine. It's also really excellent at analyzing data and analytics. It's got an entire language just dedicated to working with data, which has been developed to look very much like the data, the formulas you find in Excel, and there's a very good reason for that. You can also share reports on the Power BI service. So you upload them from Power BI Desktop and you can share for freely on the internet with anyone you want to. You can also email the output files, the desktop files, which are .pbx files, a bit like you can email somebody a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint presentation or a Word document. And you can produce fantastic documents that look like this. This is something I knocked on about 20 minutes, pulled the data from a web page. And it costs nothing, £0 and 0 pence. That is awesome. What are the downsides though? Yes, I did tell you you could share these reports on the internet for free. However, there is absolutely zero security on these reports. So anybody could wander in and have a look at them to get the URL, they could even search for them. So it's not the kind of thing you want to do if you're uploading confidential financial information about your company. So that's one thing to be very aware of. Also, if you're not a programmer, there are two different languages to be aware of that you may need to work with. One is DAX, which I talked about briefly earlier, but the other one's called M or Power Query language. Okay. You get zero support from Microsoft as a free product, so they're not going to give you any support. However, on the upside, there's a massive community who are prepared to help you with any issues you've got with Power BI Desktop. And believe me, they are very helpful. So let's move on to Power BI Pro license. Yes, this does cost some money. Currently, as of this recording, it costs £7.50 per month or £90 per year. One thing to be aware of, this is a per user license. This is tied to a user account, okay? So it means that only one person can use it at a time. If you have an Office 365 E5 license, just to let you know, not everyone knows this, you actually have Power BI license included within that. What are the fantastic things about that? Well, as I said before, you can share reports with people on the internet for free. However, you can do it securely within your organization if the other person has a Power BI Pro license. So you have to have a Power BI Pro license to share it securely, but the other person to be able to consume that report also requires a Power BI Pro license. The other thing you can do is create Power BI apps. I'm not going to go into the detail here, but just imagine it's a pre-packaged file. It can contain dashboards, reports, and data sources. It's pretty funky and awesome. Get into the details though, I thoroughly recommend it. Can I just say that Power BI apps are not the same as Power Apps. I really, really love Microsoft Marketing Department and their naming convention. The security and everything is integrated into Office 365, which is pretty awesome. I have to say, it all just works with Office 365. You also have access to the Power BI Data Gateway. This will allow you, if you've got data on premise that you want to expose on the cloud, but securely, because the data cannot leave the on-premise data center, then this allows you to do that. Yet there's so much data underneath that, I don't have time to cover it, but yes, I'm happy to answer questions about it. Downsides. When you upload your report to the internet, it's uploaded to a secure location. However, the infrastructure you're uploading it to is shared with other people. So you might have noisy tenants, maybe other people running lots of reports, so therefore your report might be slower than you expected. Just be aware of that. Again, we covered before. Now, if you want to share your report securely with someone else, they also have to have a Power BI Pro license. And remember, it's counted against an individual user account. Okay, very recently, Microsoft released something called a Power BI Premium per user account. Okay, so what's the cost of this? Well, it's £15.10 per month, or $181.20 per year as of this recording. So that's basically Power BI Pro account plus the premium account as well. Okay, premium per user. This again, I should stress, is a per user license. So it's against an account, a named account. What are the upsides of this particular account? Well, you get many of the features of Power BI Premium, and believe me, they are awesome, absolutely awesome. Unfortunately, one thing you don't get is a report sharing, but hey ho, you get larger model sizes up to 100 gigabytes, the model size. Upload is actually 10 gigabytes, but the size in the service can be up to 100. You also get paginated reports, XML endpoints, machine learning, artificial intelligence, yada, yada, yada. There is so much to be discovered. I don't have time to go into details. Go and explore it. It is just awesome and could answer some really interesting questions you're trying to get answered just now. What are the downsides though? Content sharing. Yeah. When I read this and I got into the detail of this for premium per user, I have to say at this point I went, oh my God, please no. Because if you have a pro account and someone who has a premium per user account and shares some content, the pro account cannot access if the workspace is backed by a premium per user account. Yeah. Read the details. There's lots of technical details underneath this, and there's reasons why Microsoft have done it this way. Yeah, it's complicated. I don't have time to go into the details. There are lots more to cover. Next thing I want to talk about is Power BI Embedded. Some people say embedded / embedding. I'm just going to say there's embedded and there's two different types. Okay, the first type I'm going to talk about is Office 365 EM SKU. SKU stands for Shopkeeping Units. EM stands for embedded. Okay, what are the awesome things about this? Well, if you've got an EM SKU, it means that you can embed reports really simply and easily into SharePoint Online and Microsoft Teams if you have an Office 365 subscription. The awesome thing about it is it allows you to share reports freely within your organization. Just one person has to have a Power BI Pro license to be able to publish it, but to consume the reports, you don't have to have a Power BI Pro license. Anybody can. When I say an organization, I mean an Office 365 tenant. Yeah, it's a bit complicated. I can go into details exactly what that means. If you want later on, please contact me. What are the downsides? Were you thinking, yeah, fantastic, I can share it with everybody? No, you can't. Okay, you can't share it externally. Okay, you might be able to do it with if you invited an external user into your Azure Active Directory, but I don't really know and I can't really confirm that. The other thing is the SKUs, I have to say, it's not exactly straightforward to get a hold of them. There are 3 SKUs, EM1, EM2 and EM3. EM1 and EM2, first of all, they don't have dedicated infrastructure, therefore you're sharing it with other people. Secondly, they're only available to Office 365 volume license customers only, and you have to approach Microsoft directly to purchase it. Yay, fantastic. EM3 though, does have its own dedicated infrastructure. However, to buy that is really simple and very easy. You get your Office 365 administrator to go into the admin portal and sign up for it there. Now, I know it says per month, but you can only purchase it for a minimum of 12 months. Okay, just be aware of that. And you can't change SKUs. Okay, you can't move up and down. Right, moving on. What's the other type of embedded SKU? Well, it's the Azure SKU. This one was primarily intended for independent software vendors. There you go, I put my teeth back in. So these are people who are creating web applications or desktop applications, and they want to embed Power BI reports into their application. But this is a very interesting pricing model. This pricing model I consider to be similar to, say, a parking bay, where if you park your car in a parking bay, it's governed by a parking meter. You only pay for the time your car is there. If your car's not there, you don't pay for it. Now, what they say is that if you can pause the service, okay? You can actually pause the service and it will cost you no money. On the downside though, if you pause the Azure embedded service, Power BI embedded service, you cannot access the reports that are backed by that capacity. Okay, we'll talk about capacity in a second. However, you do have no upfront costs, no termination fees, and you only pay for what you use, which is quite interesting, unlike Power BI Premium, which we'll come to in a second. The other thing is there is actually 6 SKUs, and you can scale up and down to your heart's content. The larger the number, so the A6 SKU costs more than A1 SKU, but you can scale up and down as much as you want, whenever you want. So the larger the SKU, the more power, but the more money. The smaller the SKU, the lower the cost, but the less power. It does allow you to share reports with everybody if you want to. However, you need to ensure that you authenticate people viewing your report. Downsides. Pricing, unfortunately, is a bit not exactly straightforward, and there's some other things regarding the way it renders. A1 and A2 SKUs, again, unfortunately, do not have dedicated infrastructure. A4 SKU, I should point out, is the same power as a premium P1 SKU. Now you're thinking, fantastic, awesome. Well, I'll just be able to get the Azure A SKU and I can embed it into SharePoint Online or Teams. No, you can't. It's not possible. The application is not available, and Microsoft, no doubt, would be very disappointed if you tried that. You can purchase this through the Azure portal. So if you've already got an Azure subscription, this is something you can sign up for very easily and very simply. Okay, Power BI Premium. What's awesome about Power BI Premium? It allows you to share it with anybody within your organization or externally, possibly. Now, this is an example of a capacity-based license. By capacity, I mean what you're purchasing is virtual computing power, like the EM SKU and the A SKU are also capacity-based licenses. So what you do is you take so much capacity and you allocate it to our workspace. Our workspace, kind of imagine it like a folder in the Power BI service. So you say give so much to this workspace, so much to that workspace. All the facilities there, but it's the amount of computing power that's allocated to that workspace. One of the awesome things you get if you purchase Power BI Premium is a license for Power BI Report Server. This means you can host Power BI reports on premise. So if you've got SQL Server reporting services already installed, you can host, if you install this software, you can actually host Power BI reports on premise. Okay, so not in the service, not in the Power BI service on the internet. So, and also if you happen to have SQL Server Enterprise Edition with software assurance, yada, 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 you can also have this. Not everyone knows that. So, fantastic and wonderful. So what are the downsides of it then? Well, the price. Yeah, okay. It starts off at 45,000 per annum. I don't know about you, but there are not many clients that have these kind of deep pockets, quite frankly. And usually when I have conversations with my client, and by the way, P1 is the lowest. That's the lowest level you can start off with. And remember, this is running 24/7, 365. Okay, so it's never switched off. Okay, it's constantly running and that's the minimum price. So usually when I have the conversation with my clients, they go, that's very interesting. Thank you for that price, Robert. We'll think about it and get back to you. Usually that means that's the end of the conversation there and they think about something else. So by this point, you're probably thinking, well, it's Microsoft, 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 or Microsoft, and that's the only way we can do this. There are other options. There are other ways of thinking about this if you put something in a mix. And I have to say I credit Matt Allington for getting me to think outside the box, thinking in a different way. Now, unfortunately, the solution that he originally offered has been questioned by Microsoft and saying that the licensing terms have changed. And yes, I'm looking at you, Microsoft, because you haven't replied to Matt Allington regarding his query. You have pointed out, and I recommend reading the URL down there, read that blog post. It does make it quite clear exactly what it is. And if you want to be able to use this solution, you require the services of an independent software vendor. And yes, this is why Microsoft Power BI licensing is not exactly transparent and clear, in my personal opinion. Okay, that's my personal opinion. Now, when I first presented this, there's a company called Defscope out in Portugal who are a Microsoft Go partner who contacted me with this particular product. And I thought, this is interesting, because what they were offering was effectively a website that a company could buy from them and run, that allowed them to customize the website according to their colors. People could log into it, didn't matter, it didn't have to be part of the organization. And then the person running the website could determine whether who could and couldn't see the Power BI reports that are supported underneath it. Interesting. One of the things that also got me was they said, because it runs on top of a Power BI embedded ASCII, you could pause the service. So if someone wasn't using noticed that somebody had not used the Power BI portal for say 30 minutes, it would automatically pause the service until someone came and actually asked for a report, in which case it would automatically restart the service. Remember the Power BI ASCII, you don't pay any money if it's paused. And it began to make me think, well, offices don't keep the heating and lights on 24/7, 365, just in case someone wants to come in at 4:30 in the morning to work on a report. No, they have either light sensors, so they switch off if nobody is using it to save money. The beauty of this solution is it allows you to securely share with anybody, but you don't have to, as a user, you don't have to take care of the security. So how much does this cost? Well, unfortunately, we need to look at the individual components here. Okay, so the individual components you require is an Azure SQL database, Microsoft Blob Storage, two Microsoft App Services, and the appropriate ASCII, whichever one you want. You can buy one from A1 all the way up to A6, entirely up to you which one you want to purchase. Okay. Then you purchase from Devscope, you purchase the Power BI portal. Now I did a bit of calculation. Okay, the price is there just approximately 3,200 per annum. That is the 12-month cycle. 12-month cycle, yes. And I did some calculation on the prices. Now this is the prices I came up with. Now the A4 SKU is equivalent to a premium P1 SKU. As you can see, it's just a bit cheaper. Now, this pricing is based on the fact that the Azure SKU is only running 10 hours per day, Monday to Friday only. Okay, and you've got a DevScope 12-month contract, and everything else is running as there. Okay, but cheaper, eh? Now, you don't believe me. I entirely understand that. So let's look at how I arrived at these figures. Okay, so number of working days in a year. That's my calculations. So approximately 22 working days per year. I got the price of the DevScope Power BI portal, monthly cost, and these are the costs for the appropriate services here. Now, unfortunately, I don't have time to show you the calculator. If I had more time, I'd go into the calculator and show you. So welcome to the Azure calculator. Down at the bottom there is a URL. That URL takes you to the Azure calculator where I got these prices from. Okay, so this is how I found the prices. This is a breakdown for an A1 embedded SKU of what you do have to purchase one Power BI Pro license in order to be able to publish to the Azure, the Power BI embedded SKU. A little cheaper on the Power BI P1 SKU. This is an A2, A3, and the A4. Half the price, but obviously it's not being used 24/7, 365. So it may be suitable for certain organizations and certain situations. Not everybody would want to work this way, but it's another option. And maybe it makes you thinking, well, maybe there's a way I can leverage what I need, but only when I need it. Now, I'll be honest with you, you're probably nodded off by now because this is not the most exciting topic in the world, I have to agree. I have studied for quite a while, I understand that. So in conclusion, I just want to repeat what I've told you, just to give you a summary. There is a free product from Microsoft, Power BI Desktop. It's absolutely awesome. We haven't touched visualizations. We haven't looked at that, but you get an ETL tool, a data warehousing tool, can connect to so many different data sources, programming languages, like do analytics, just amazing stuff. Power BI Pro license. That's awesome. Depending on the number of people you have, it may be just exactly what you need. And I probably imagine maybe 50 to 100 customers, probably just perfect. And maybe one or two of those people need some of the AI or possibly the paginated reports, or maybe one of those two other facilities we talked about that only the Power BI Premium per user can give you. So maybe you just need to purchase that extra little to get them, just those facilities. Or maybe you're looking to just share you embed reports into either your SharePoint Online or into your Teams portal, in which case this is absolutely perfect. It's not very easy to share with external customers. It might be possible, but I can't guarantee that. But you have to sign up for a minimum of 12 months. Or possibly the Azure option, but again, you require an independent software vendor to be able to help you actually do that because of the way that Microsoft wants to license it, yada, yada, yada. And of course, Power BI Premium. If you have the budget, it is just amazing. The things it gives you are just fantastic. And if you have the budget, I thoroughly recommend it. Or alternatively, you don't have to use exactly what Microsoft have told you. You can look at the offering the way that Matt Allington's suggesting, possibly consider what he's putting forward, or possibly think about the Power BI portal from DevScope. And there are third parties that offer similar products. This one just happens to be the one that I've looked at in detail and I know a bit more about. But for me, the advantage of the last two options is it puts you in the driving seat in terms of being able to control costs, because that's the fundamental factor. You want to be able to control costs and keep them down to a level you can manage. Now, what do I recommend? I'm afraid it's a consultant's answer. It depends. I don't know. I need to know more about your situation, because every situation is slightly different and it will depend on what I'm going to recommend to you. If you ask me, I would love to have a conversation about Power BI licensing. Honestly, I really enjoy it. It's one of those things that's really fascinating for me because it's so difficult to find all the information in one place, and that's why I like talking about it. So if you want to, please come and ask me questions. It doesn't necessarily have to lead to a sale or anything, but I just want to talk to you about it. In conclusion, I got a minute left, so I want to say thank you. Thank you for taking the time to actually spend listening to me talk about this, because I'm incredibly passionate about it. I love answering questions about Power BI licensing. I love talking about Power BI. I love talking Microsoft products in general, but those are the things that I really enjoy talking about, and included with SQL Server. So if you want to ask me questions, these are my contact details. It's been fantastic having this opportunity to speak to you. I look forward to answering your questions in the near future. Otherwise, thank you for taking the time to watch this. I look forward to reading and hearing your comments.